He had never lost a battle, not one. In 12 years of war across 3 continents, he never lost. But on the night of June 10th, 323 BC, Alexander the Great drank a cup of wine at a banquet in Babylon and was dead within 12 days. He was 32 years old. He had no heir, he had no succession plan, and the men who stood to gain the most from his death were all in the room that night. For 2,300 years, no one has been able to prove exactly what happened. This is what we know and what we suspect. To understand how Alexander died, you first have to understand what he had built and how impossible it was. After his spectacular conquests from Persia to India between 334 and 324 BC, Alexander had created the largest empire the world had ever seen, stretching from modern Albania to Pakistan, unified under a single ruler in just over a decade. He had defeated the Persian king Darius III at the Battle of Gaugamela. He had marched his army through the Hindu Kush in winter. He had crossed the Indus River and fought war elephants with infantry. He had done things that military historians still struggle to explain. And then, suddenly, he stopped. In 324 BC, his army refused to march further east. They had been at war for 11 years. They wanted to go home. For the first time in his life, Alexander the Great was told no, and he had to listen. He turned back toward Babylon, where he planned his next campaign. Arabia. He was making preparations when he fell ill. He never recovered. In June 323 BC, in the palace of Nebuchadnezzar II in Babylon, Alexander was drinking at one of his many all-night banquets when he suddenly cried out in pain. He was sent to bed suffering from abdominal pain and a fever. What happened next unfolded over 12 agonizing days. His condition deteriorated. He suffered weakness, thirst, possible convulsions, pain, partial paralysis, and drifted in and out of consciousness. His soldiers, the men who had followed him across the world, lined up outside his room to see him one last time. He was too weak to speak. He could only raise his hand slightly as each man passed. When they asked him who should inherit his empire, he reportedly whispered, "The strongest." Then he was gone. Here is the strangest detail of all, and the one that changed everything. According to historical accounts, Alexander's body showed no signs of decay for 6 days after his death, even though it was kept in a hot, humid place. To the ancient Greeks, this was a sign of divinity. To modern scientists, it is something else entirely. One theory suggests that Alexander was afflicted with Guillain-Barré syndrome, a condition where the immune system attacks the nervous system, causing severe neurological damage, including difficulty speaking, paralysis, and eventually death. The true horror of this diagnosis is this: Alexander may not have been dead when they thought he was. In the ancient world, death was determined by breathing, not pulse. A man with Guillain-Barré can appear dead for days while still alive. Alexander the Great, the man who conquered the world, may have been buried alive. The ancient sources were divided from the start. Some believed natural illness, others believed poison, and the suspects were hiding in plain sight. Antipater, the governor of Macedon, who had recently been removed from his post and summoned to Babylon. Antipater may have feared he was to be put to death as punishment for corruption. According to ancient sources, he arranged for Alexander to be poisoned by Alexander's own wine pourer, his son Cassander acting as the delivery mechanism. Cassander himself would go on to murder Alexander's mother, his wife Roxana, and his infant son, eliminating every remaining heir. A coincidence, or a continuation? The generals, the Diadochi, the successors, who carved up Alexander's empire the moment he died, each taking a piece they could never have claimed while he lived. Within 20 years of Alexander's death, his entire inner circle had killed each other in a series of wars that consumed the ancient world. The most likely poison, if poison it was white hellebore, a plant available in the ancient world known to cause exactly the symptoms Alexander displayed: abdominal pain, weakness, paralysis, and a slow death over days. It could be dissolved in wine. It would be undetectable to ancient medicine. It would be invisible in a banquet cup. Whatever killed Alexander, poison or illness, the result was the same. The greatest empire ever built collapsed within a generation. His generals divided the world between them. Ptolemy took Egypt and founded a dynasty that would last until Cleopatra. Seleucus took Persia. Antigonus took Asia Minor, and they immediately began destroying each other. The wars of the Diadochi, the successor wars, lasted 40 years. They were fought with armies Alexander had trained, using tactics he had invented across territories he had conquered. His legacy was consumed by the men who had served him. Cassander, the man most suspected of delivering the poison, had Alexander's 13-year-old son murdered in 310 BC, along with the boy's mother, Roxana. Every direct descendant of Alexander the Great was dead within 14 years of his death. The greatest conqueror in history left no legacy but ruins. Modern historians and toxicologists remain divided. Some favor typhoid fever complicated by other factors. Others point to West Nile virus. Researchers noted that ravens were reported dying in Babylon shortly before Alexander fell ill, consistent with bird-to-human virus transmission. A New Zealand toxicologist, Dr. Leo Shep, conducted an extensive research project and concluded that if poison was the cause, the most likely scenario involves white hellebore, a plant whose active compounds cause exactly the progression Alexander experienced, including the apparent post-death preservation of the body. We will almost certainly never know the truth. The cup is gone. The wine is gone. The witnesses are dust. What remains is a story. The most powerful man in the world, undone in a single night by something small enough to dissolve in a drink. Alexander the Great was 32 years old. He had never lost a battle. He had plans for Arabia, for Carthage, for the Western Mediterranean. He was, by every measure, just getting started. The world he might have built, a connected, Hellenized civilization from Greece to India, evaporated the moment he set down that cup. His body was eventually taken to Alexandria, where it was placed in a golden sarcophagus in a tomb that became one of the wonders of the ancient world. Julius Caesar wept when he visited it. Augustus stood before it in awe. And then, sometime in the chaos of late antiquity, the tomb disappeared. To this day, no one knows where Alexander the Great is buried. The man who conquered the world has no grave. Subscribe. The next empire is already falling. Next episode, the Sultan who ruled 600 years of Ottoman power, dethroned in a single night by the very men he had educated and trusted.